For the longest, I've had this kind of feeling where it's like I'll smile or I'll be happy in public and I'll be like, oh, fuck that. Why am I smiling? Like, why am I being happy? Like, nah, let me hide my smile. Or like, nah, let me not smile at that person when they're walking by. Like, little things like that. And now, granted, I live in New York, so it's a bit different out here. I'm not gonna lie. It's a bit different out here.
Stupid, fat, discombobulated bitch. Fuck you talking about?
But just that aside, like, the idea of, I guess, smiling, being happy, being positive, these are all things that on average, most, if not all of us are striving for in some way, shape, or form. Even somebody that's like fucking evil. Like somebody that literally murders people is still seeking happiness. Let that sink in. Like they're still seeking happiness in some way, shape, or form. Because that killing, that murdering, that egregious act is giving them some sense of relief. So in some not even weird way, but reality is we're all chasing happiness. Happiness is a natural state of being, and it's a state of being that we want to get to. We want to be in a more positive state of being. So to see yourself being happy and to then shut yourself down from being happy, it makes absolutely no sense. But it's the headspace that I found myself in more often than not. And then the deeper down that rabbit hole I kind of went, the more I kind of started to realize a lot of the things that I would look at, I'd be like, oh, that's cringe, or like, oh, that's BS, or like, oh, fuck that shit. Anything that I would look at with more of like a, not necessarily that I didn't like it, but it was a strong dislike. Like the things that you strongly dislike are the things that you're just like, yo, ah, you know what I mean? There's usually some form of truth about yourself in that. The most obvious ones are like racism and homophobia. Like those usually have some form of insecurity or some form of unsureness or fear baked deep underneath. Like it's not at the top, it's not on the surface, it's not what you first come across, but when you really dig deep into the nitty and gritty, it's like, okay, so there's some fear here, or like there's some insecurity here, or there's some feeling here that we're not really addressing. So even when I was younger, I'd see like people talk about positivity, or people talk about like the type of music they listen to, and like how you gotta, even, you know, you're young and your parents are like, oh, you gotta listen to the more positive music, or like you're listening to all this like negative music, or this music with this cursing and this and that, and you don't really think much about it. You're kind of just like, this is my music, you don't understand, you'll never understand me, like da. You kind of fall into that headspace. But if you really sit down and think about it, and you really digest a lot of what we consume in terms of music, in terms of media, there is a negative feedback loop, or like almost like a loop of negativity that we tend to subscribe to, because there is a bit of a need for it. You know, at the end of the day, as much as we strive for the positive, negative and positive are one and the same. We need them both. But both of those energies can easily be put out of balance. So you could be put in a position to where you're more attracted to, or you're diving deeper into things that are negative because they satiate you in some way, shape, or form, and that's a positive thing. It's a very like tightly weathered, like tightly packaged system. But when you kind of hop on the flip side and you really realize what you're digesting, it has a direct effect on how you perceive things and how you go about operating within the world. So you see something that's more positive, and now your response to it is something negative. Your response to it is almost like a, nah, fuck that shit. It's kind of all a part of one big cycle. It's all a part of one loop where you go from extreme to extreme to get to kind of learn who you are, and then you kind of reach more of a middle point. You reach more of a middle ground. So it's less about listening to nothing but positivity, positive, happy, high vibration, this, and less about negativity, debauchery, drugs, sex, violence, debauchery. it's less about either extreme and more about finding that equilibrium in the middle where it's like, yeah, you have moments where you really just turn up. you just turn up and you're just having a good time and you're celebrating, and that's that. And then there's other times where you have to focus. There's times where diplomacy is necessary, or there's times where you have to be patient. And there are times when you have to learn to not be patient. You have to learn how to be more aggressive. There's a time and a place for the aggression, and there's a time and a place for the lack thereof. But in hopping to either or side completely, you lose an aspect of your humanity that still exists. And that's where you'll see a lot of the swearing off of things and almost like having such heavy judgment towards things actually ends up hurting you. Because now when you come across these things in your own life, or when you're trying to live your own life, you're meeting yourselves with those same harsh criticisms that are unfair to your human existence. You're going to occasionally fuck up and eat more than one chocolate chip cookie. It's within you to be able to not need more than what you need, yet to still want it. And practicing not over consuming is a virtue that gets you further along. But the only reason that virtue exists is because you have the ability to overconsume. Therefore, failing and overconsuming, or failing in like being gluttonous, or failing in being lustful, isn't necessarily damnation. It shouldn't be like the absolute. It's a part of what you are. And instead of looking at it as something that is a one and done, or a thing of like you have a problem, it's just, this is who I am. All of it is who you are. The negative and the positive, the good and the bad, Jesus and the devil. Like, no matter which way you kind of want to spin it, both of those aspects are a part of who you are. And in accepting them, it makes it a lot easier for you to just kind of breathe easy and exist, because now it's just a matter of the choice you make.